Hello all you fine folks, and thank you for coming back to the channel. Today we're going to take a look at the Beta 75X HD, featuring the new Beta FPV flight controller with an F4 processor OSD and a 12 amp ESC. We've got 1103 8000 kV motors, running GEM fan 4-bladed 40mm props in Beta FPV Blue, Caddx Turtle V2 for your HD recording and your FPV view, power switchable VTX from 25mW to 200mW via smart audio, now has a linear or whip antenna. We also get multicolored LEDs. Mine is the FR Sky version. It does come with a spare set of props and a controller for your camera. I flew it on GNB 3S 300mAh batteries and MyLipo 3S 333mAh batteries. It weighs about 58.5 grams. With the MyLipo battery, it weighs just over 86 grams. With the GNB battery, it weighs just over 83 grams. Motor post to motor post, I'm getting about 76 millimeters. Yep, you heard that right. Nothing else comes in the box. That's it. You get a little bit of foam to keep it safe in its travels to your home. But that's all you get. And in this flight footage that we're watching here, you're going to see a couple of different kind of flight styles. I kind of tried to put several different in one flight. I think sometimes when I get to have too much flight footage that some people get lost or they just go away and then they ask a question that they could have gotten an answer to had they stayed a little bit longer. So I think one flight that is going to be about 3 minutes, and this is running on the CineWhoop or the MyLipo 3S 333mAh battery. This is going to run us just about 3 minutes, and we're going to have a kind of a cruising flight style that you're looking at now, and then I'm going to pick up the pace a little bit too. I'm going to try to show you what it does and does not do all that well. Now, at the weight it's coming in at, it's not going to be highly acrobatic, and I don't think we can expect that, and I don't know how many of you do expect something like this to be highly acrobatic. Yes, you can do flips and rolls. You could do some minor acrobatics. Say you want to loop over something or you want to power over something. That will work, but you just won't get much hang time. So you won't be doing very technical, high-flying maneuvers unless you go way up and then do it as you're coming down, because you're going to come down pretty fast. And we pass over the house there. I wanted to use that pass over the house as a way for you to be able to judge full throttle and how quickly it climbs. Especially for those people that come to the channel and are used to seeing that pass, you'll be able to judge that fairly well. I do dive testing that we'll look at later on in the video, but I don't think that dive testing gives you a really good idea how quickly or not so quickly it accelerates. I think on the garage side where you have that measurement of the house as you're going up, that is a much better way of viewing what kind of vertical performance the quad has. One thing about Beta FPV that I can appreciate is, to my eye, when they create an HD whoop, and HD whoops and whoops in general are kind of their business, they do a pretty nice job of making sure that their canopy is going to keep the camera still. Because to my eye, when I look at the footage that we're watching, it looks pretty still. And so I think that's really important. Why would you buy an HD whoop and you get little jitters in it? You know, we started out with that and kind of suffer through that, but we really shouldn't, as things develop, continue to see that. The canopy that they have is pretty hefty. It weighs almost 4 grams, so that plays a role into the weight of the overall machine. So that's something else that you should note. Also, you can't adjust the camera unless you pop the canopy and you use the cable controller in order to do that. But I will say that the canopy should be much more robust than those canopies they used to use. But as we come in here to land, we're going to get about, it's actually about 2 minutes and 58 seconds or something like that as I bounce her over onto her roof. Let's take a look at some dives now, because that's another big deal with these whoops. As we're looking at this dive footage, those that may have just be entering the hobby, one of the things that we've always struggled with when we have these prop guards all the way around the prop is that when you get that vertical position, you start to come back down to the ground, that sometimes it causes too much air turbulence, and what you end up having is what we've been referring to as washout. And what's most important for those that may have not heard that term or seen it before is I have to show it to you. So I do find that you can wash this one out, but I will give it some credit. I did learn how to prohibit it from happening, and we'll get to those dives. And the main trick of this is just learning when you need to come out of the dive and how much throttle to give it. You really have to jam it because we're not coming in, you know, it's not a light quad for a 40mm prop, so you got to get on the throttle pretty heavy. But I found that with regularity, I could do dives and I wouldn't wash out. And every once in a while, I had some finesse and some technique there that might have been off, and you could kind of feel it want to. And what I would feel was the nose would start to turn a little bit. It would just kind of come over a little bit, but you probably can't even see it even in the HD footage as we run through all these different dives. Another question that might come up, no, I am not using an ND filter. Matter of fact, I think getting an ND filter on here might be a little bit of a challenge. There's not much lens exposed, so getting your ND filter on could be a little bit of a stretch. I'm waiting for them to come out with ND filters that just stick on right to the lens. I think that's what we need. We need to stop fooling around with the ring and everything that goes around these things and just stick it right on, just like they do with GoPros. Why not? Sell them for $1.50 a piece, and we'll buy 10 of them, and we'll go out and use them, and as they break, we'll buy more. It's a great business opportunity for somebody who wants to create an ND filter that fits right on the Caddx Turtle or other HD-based video FPV cameras. In this little section, what I'm doing is just trying to fly more aggressively, more consistent. I'm actually trying to do more of a racing style. Something that's more native to me, might be for you as well, or it might not, but I wanted to kind of give this footage a little run here. You can see I whiz around the trees. I'm going back and forth, and you do have to get on the throttle pretty hard if you want to get around an object and then get going the other way. Otherwise, the quad tends to settle in a little bit. If you stay on the throttle and then jam it, when you've gotten around that object and we need to go the other way. And when I say jam it, I don't mean 100%. I'm talking 85 to 90%, somewhere in there. It will take off and fly fairly well. I had one severe crash, and unfortunately we have to look at this at DVR, because as you'll see at the crash, we get like a camera reset or a board reset, and the HD footage was not recorded. I actually tried to use a memory card utility to recover lost data, and it didn't find it either, so it must be in the wind. But we do still have this DVR footage where you get to see the crash, and I initially was concerned because when it came back up, as you've seen in the video, no picture, just OSD. That usually indicates a dead camera, but I power cycled it and I flew it some more, and it seems to be fine. Now, what caused that? Sometimes in these micros, when we have a sudden stop or a crash, these things can happen, and maybe they happen with 5-inchers too. I just don't fly 5-inchers. But I've seen this a time or two in other quads. In a hard crash, even without the battery ejecting, you can have a flight controller reset or an electronic component reset. But the good news is I must have flown at 6 or 8 more packs after this crash, and I did run it into a chain there on the swing, and it's a pretty hefty chain. You know, it's supposed to hold kids and people. Stopped it dead in its tracks, and so we have the DVR footage to show that. I know that that's a big concern for some people, because some people have unfortunately lost their Caddx cameras. Either the sensor on the camera or a component on the board has died from crashes. So that's something to be aware of, that if you're early in your FPV journey doing super aggressive flight with anything with a Caddx Turtle in it, you should be pretty confident that you're not going to crash it, because some people have had problems with it. I haven't. I thought I broke this one, but I haven't broke any of the machines that I've had with the Caddx Turtle just yet. One of the things that I wanted to show you was the batteries, because Beta FPV has developed their own battery, and it seems to be marketed for this type of quad. You can see my battery packaging is coming off, unfortunately, but this is the 3S 333 milliamp battery from TinyWhoop.com. It's made by MyLipo. I think you can only get this through TinyWhoop.com. And when you first put it in, you'll feel like you're using too much force. If you look at my battery cage there, you see how those are slightly bowed out. Maybe if I can draw your attention to it, like right at this level, they're slightly bowed out. That's because it's not designed for these batteries, I think, or it's designed to be so snug that after you've put a few in that it stays snug. So I've had 30, maybe 40 packs through this thing, and so 30 or 40 times or more, because I've done a few here as I've recorded tonight, it seems to be holding up just fine. I don't think this material will break, but of course, with enough force, just about anything will break. It does come with a PID tune. I don't recall mentioning that in the flight video, and I'll put that on screen in case you happen to lose that. Also, the beta flight version should be included in that snapshot as well. I don't think I showed it in the quick roll, but these are multicolored LEDs, and you can program them. They come pre-programmed based upon whether you're armed or not armed, so you'll get different colors and lights in the back. I have the FrSky XM Plus version, so I oriented my antennas this way, and I just used the LED board as my mounting for those, and a little bit of shrink wrap around those, and I found that that works fine. This zip tie does come stock with it, and you'll see that I've got some grass stains, and I'm going to do something here, but I don't recommend it. Don't do what I'm going to do, because I've already made a video warning everybody about that. But when you're using turtle mode on these, you're taking a risk. You're taking a risk that there's nothing in the props, or at least there's not enough in the props that'll keep it from spinning. Because turtle mode can be risky, and you can burn your board when you try to flip over and you have a prop obstruction. And as you see in that clip, I flip over and I take off just fine. Now, I did that for two reasons. One, I'm lazy, and I'd done a whole bunch of flying, and I was pretty confident I had more than enough footage to be able to put together a review video, and I wanted to see what happens. Because if I can test it and I find out whether it's a success or failure, then you can be a little bit more assured about the components that are used inside the machine and that you'll be able to do it. But again, the grass in my yard is not big, thick grass, because you saw in that HD footage it's kind of spotty. I got a lot of young grass coming up. You get a stick or something through there, your results could be differently. So I'm not encouraging you to use turtle mode or to take off from the grass. Couple things to note: you may need a stick or something to press the record button, which is right there. It does not record by default. You have to press the button, or you take the canopy off, you use the Caddx control board that it does come with, and then you change the Caddx camera settings to where it does auto record. It is set up to record in 1080p at 60 frames a second, so that's a nice thing. And there is audio. Let's listen to a little clip of the audio from the Caddx Turtle, because what you heard was from my field mic. I like to include that so you can hear what it sounds like from my perspective. This is the audio that is recorded on the Caddx Turtle. Be warned, I'm only going to play about 3 seconds of it. It's not good to listen to. Many people compare it to a dentist drill, and people oftentimes cringe at that sound. So in 3, 2, 1... Okay, and we're back. That's what the mic sounds like on board, and I turned the volume level way down. I think I had 85% down on that audio, just to make sure that I didn't blow your eardrums out, because one time I had the audio level not at its default, but only down like 60%. People did not like that. So I try to please everybody, and so I turned the volume level way down on that. It doesn't sound good. It's only going to be useful when the motors aren't spinning. So if you have one of these in the field and you have some sort of conversation, you will be able to pick that up. I mentioned it in the flight footage, but as you can see, barely any of this lens is really exposed. So getting an ND filter that is made from Caddx on there is going to be a challenge, especially if you go with max camera angle, which I did use during all my flights. There's just no way you can do it up here because they've built in some camera protection. So if you're flying along, you'll be more likely to hit that than take a direct hit at your camera. Of course, if you've got a pole or a stick and you fly directly into it, there's not much you can do about that in any case. These canopies are pretty robust, and as I mentioned in the flight footage, it's way better than some of the other canopies Beta FPV has been using. And something that surprised me was how efficient these motors are at relatively high throttle. You know, normally you're shooting for a hover that might be in a high performance machine around 20%, maybe 25% that you can hover the machine. Well, this one hovers at about 50%, so to fly very aggressively, you're at the top end of the throttle most of the time. And I was surprised to still be able to get 3 minutes of footage. My initial flight, when I was just testing it in the house, and I apologize, I don't have any flight footage inside the house. It really wasn't a focus of mine this time. I really didn't expect to get more than about 1.5 minutes with what I felt on the throttle. This combination of motor and prop seems to be pretty efficient at relatively high throttle. And that's a good thing, so you can get 3 minutes of cruising or mixed flight possibly, depending upon your flight style and what you're doing, your altitude, all those things vary. So as you can see, my Beta FPV 75X HD, it held up pretty well. I crashed it a number of times. No breakages, just a bunch of grass stuck up in there, as you might expect. And what do you think? I'd really like to know. We've seen these come to market a few different ways. We've got the Caddx Tarsier versions that are headed our way. What are you interested in? I need to know a couple of things so I know where to focus on my review videos. Are you looking for slow, smooth, cruisy, cinematic style flight? Are you looking for aggressive flight? Are you looking for more acrobatic and high flying flight? Of course, we'd like to have it all. I just don't think that's reasonable in this sort of package. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please let me know in that section down below. I appreciate your time. And thanks for watching.